let's see. Chapter 17. Leonie second-guessed her choice of wardrobe. Traveling in a caravan that, in theory rather than practice, was designed for haste meant Leonie had little in the way of fashion variety. Still, of the 3 dinner dresses she had brought along, she wondered if she had chosen correctly. In an attempt to appear dignified and regal, she had gone with a black dress, embroidered with royal orange fabric and adorned with solid gold thread. It was a ravishing piece, but in the garish dining room in which she now sat, with its chipping gold-embroidered doorframe and obnoxious chandelier in need of a polish, she looked like another decor piece struggling to fit in. Perhaps I should have gone with something travel-stained, something which says, I am not from here. I am only passing through, no? She imagined vaguely what that would have looked like instead. She would have stayed with something black, of course, perhaps one of her, Your Highness. Leonie looked up from the tabletop where her fingers drummed lightly, raising an eyebrow at Lady Amandine, who sat in the space to her left. The woman looked to be posing for a portrait. Even the dull lighting of the chandelier only made her more refined and mysterious. Sometimes, Leonie felt as if the whole of creation was trying to bend itself to Amandine's will. Lady Amandine bristled when Leonie only stared her down, then sighed. It would appear our company will be delayed. As the princess, it is well within decorum for you to allow yourself to dine. In the meantime, that is the closest she shall ever come to admitting she is hungry, Leonie thought. Well, Leonie was hungry too, so she could hardly blame her. Had she eaten breakfast? She thought she had, but she could not be sure. Leonie sat up a little straighter and rolled her shoulders. I am far more famished for answers than food, Lady Amandine. But since the former will not arrive any time soon, let us eat. Leonie looked at the maid girl who stood by the set of large double doors, her hands clasped before her, fingers interlocking and fidgety. With a wave of Leonie's hand, the girl bowed low, then scurried out of the room. The Duchess sipped wine from a goblet as hideous as the wall tapestry behind her. No, Leonie considered. Perhaps the tapestry is worse. Was that a dragon? A toad? Lady Amandine read her thoughts. It is all rather cerulean, is it not? That would explain a great deal, Leonie said, with a frown, eyes still fixed on the tapestry, though I think even Queen Celia would have been offended to see how misshapen her influences become. I do not recall burgundy fabric intended to accent redwood. Leonie held up one hand to the red, tousled table runner. Well, misshapen... Lady Amandine frowned. Well, misshapen intentions and ideologies are all the rage these days, I think, no? Leonie's eyes flickered to the Duchess and narrowed. Amandine, for her part, was casually turning away from Leonie and towards the set of double doors that the maid had gone through. Her words had been precise, vague enough to technically not be accusatory, but under context to make her feelings about Leonie rather clear. Leonie wondered if she had talked with the priest and then decided she most certainly had. Well, if you take such issue with... A knock sounded, filling the room with a dull thunk, thunk, thunk. Leonie gave an irritated sigh, then nodded to the guards posted on either side of the door. One leaned over and opened the door a crack, conversing with whoever was outside. A moment later, he turned and announced, Ranger Tall is requesting entrance, Your Highness. She brings with her Oli of Watchful, a local huntsman. "They may enter," Leonie said. With a nod, the guard pulled the door open wide. Two figures stepped into the dining room. The first was Tall, who dropped to a knee and bowed her head the moment she saw the princess. The second was, at first glance, another one of the king's rangers, and, if not for the guard's announcement, Leonie might have dismissed him as one. He was dressed in the ranger garb and shifted his weight from foot to foot in a way Leonie had grown accustomed to seeing among scouts and the like. Yet he was without armaments, clearly lacking any understanding of decorum. Lady Amandine's voice rang out, loud and clear, sharp even. "Commoners bow before their princess." The man looked at Amandine and raised an eyebrow. Then, with a shrug, he knelt beside Tall. Leonie almost laughed aloud. Kneeling was for those who were within the royal service of the crown, for those who would die for the king. Commoners bowed instead, bending at the waist to demonstrate their submission. Amandine clicked her tongue and shook her head, but before she could correct the man, Leonie raised her own hand to stop her. "Rise, the both of you. Oli, was it? Thank you for coming to dinner. It shall be served shortly. Come, sit. Corporal, you are dismissed." Oli felt lightheaded and awkward. Tall had made him clean his hands with a purple-hued bar of soap, and the lavender scent filled his nostrils. His new boots had too much wiggle room for his toes, and the tunic and cloak they'd given him hung stiff. His knife had been left behind with his bloody rags, and he felt he might have been naked because of it. Now, after all that, he stood in a room that was far too bright and far too big and far too ornate for it to belong in Watchful. The table stretched out before him. It was longer than his home was wide, and every inch of the wall was covered with paintings, tapestries, or decorations, and every one of them could have been sold to feed his family for a month. It was beautiful and frightening and disgusting all at once. And then there was the princess. After seeing her, the rest of the room faded away into a dull visual clutter. Oli hardly noticed the guards flanking him, or the grouchy hag scolding him, or even the rest of the furnishings. For one instant, Oli felt as if her presence was like the call, something too beautiful and unknowable to be real, and therefore impossible to look away. Her black dress was the night sky, the pale skin of her neck and cheeks were the moon. She met his eyes with such confidence, such assurance. Oli could only assume that she had never known anything but power. Oli gestured to the seat beside him. That gesture, that simple beckoning forth, clicked something in Oli's mind. He braced himself, steeling his mind and forcing himself to look away. "Palmentites," he reminded himself, the way he would Tuck. It took a dozen of Oli's racing heartbeats before he could force himself to move toward the seat beside the princess. She was seated at the head of the table, and she'd indicated the seat to her right, which felt important in a way that Oli didn't understand. Floorboards creaked beneath his weight as he made his way toward the princess on shaky legs. Leonie eyed the woodsman carefully as he sat. His face was calm, lips turned into a frown that appeared so natural, Leonie assumed it was a permanent fixture. His beard was scruffy and unkempt, and Leonie noticed subtle cuts and scars all about his cheeks, eyes, ears, hands, and wrists. Nearly every visible inch of skin was marred. More than a few looked fresh, and she could see one tunic sleeve puffing out, a sign there was a bandage beneath. It was not an unfamiliar sight. Leonie had grown up around soldiers and guardsmen, but it told her much about him. A warrior of sorts, Leonie mused, and one who can meet my eyes. In fact, he was still doing it, eyes locked on hers, neither of them willing to break away. That meant he was either brave or he had not the slightest clue that he danced with a grave offense. You are one of the... Oh, what did that boy call it? Amandine cleared her throat, and Leonie looked away from Ollie and toward the woman on instinct, cursing herself the moment she did. Had she just lost some power play with this man? One of the Stre'ezar, I think, Your Highness? Ah, yes, Leonie said, looking back at Ollie. You are one of the Stre'ezar, no? Aye, Ollie said, rubbing his chin. Leonie waited a moment longer for Ollie to say something else, anything else. But he was silent, comfortable even with Leonie and Amandine's expectant eyes on him. After a moment, Leonie said, I received a report earlier today from the ranger who brought you here. She said there are few of you Stre'ezar around, so few, in fact, she had expressed doubts about finding any of you at all. Ollie nodded, giving a soft grunt. Is this what we must work with? Leonie thought. She had worked, it seemed, with brighter scullions. Perhaps you can tell us more about yourself and the other Stre'ezar? Why are there so few of you, for starters? The woodsman's eyes roamed around the table as if looking for a lost thought, and she began to wonder if he was capable of speech in any extended form when he gave a small cough and then shrugged. Just not many about, is all. Wood's a dangerous place. Some of us don't live long. Ones who do live off a ways. Don't come into town much. Leonie leaned forward, trying to meet Ollie's eyes again, though they were wandering about now. She had enough dealings with court etiquette to tell when someone was an open book and when someone's thoughts would be locked and hidden away. The latter was usually true, and that was what she sensed now. She settled into familiar territory. There was a small rap on the door. Ah, Amandine said with a faint smile, that would be the food. Ollie sat still, heart pounding in his chest and his tongue swollen and moist in anticipation. Oh, he'd smelled the cooking meat when he'd first entered this place, but watching that platter placed gingerly on the table before him made him doubt reality itself. Delusional, he thought numbly. Took a harder beating than I thought. He gingerly touched his bicep and felt the sudden stab of pain from the bruising. No, he wasn't dreaming. This was real somehow, food and a plethora of it. Roasted lamb raised in one of the pens near the bottom of the hill, covered in a dark gravy. Carrots soaked in honey, rolls gleaming with glaze, potatoes on a bed of onions and garlic. Ollie's stomach rolled, and he couldn't decide if he would devour it all for longing or vomit at the sight. It was also fantastic and so wrong. His mother and sister were 3 bow shots away, with nothing more than soup filled with broth and beans. Please, the princess said, her arms sweeping across the table to take it all in. Eat whatever you would like. Ollie's plate was before him, a silver disc, polished to the point of reflecting his own ragged features. He looked like an animal beside the princess, hardly civilized at all with his scraggly beard that still had bits of dirt and dried blood speckled in it. And yet, he was still a man, if a haggard one. He had principles. A kindly-looking girl placed a filled plate before the princess and then bowed and stepped away. Ollie cleared his throat and gave a small nod to the food. Thanks, but I ain't hungry. The princess leaned to the side, elbow resting on the side of the chair. You lie. The words were frank, a statement from a woman fully assured that she knew the truth. The blunt accusation sounded odd when mixed with her heavy accent. She spoke with such flourish that everything sounded more than it needed to be, as if her words were as dressed up as her body. Ollie nodded. Aye. Do you think I would try to poison you, woodsman? I assure you this food is safe. See? She skewered a small piece of lamb from her plate with her fork, then carefully put it to her mouth as if to say, "Watch me, savage, and see how to eat." Ollie shook his head. Ain't that just something wrong about filling my belly when people I care about are hungry? Some things just ain't right, eh? As carefully as he could, Ollie pushed the plate away, hoping no one saw his trembling fingers. Leonie nodded, but Ollie saw the way her lips twitched in something like frustration or distaste. Either way, Leonie dabbed her lips with a soft napkin, then pushed her own plate away. There is honor in that, if perhaps foolishness also. Well, I shall join you in fasting this meal, and my maid will ensure you leave tonight with the remainder of the food. The princess snapped her fingers, and the young woman stepped forward, bowed, and then removed the food from the table. Now, if we are bypassing supper, we should bypass pleasantries as well. Let us discuss why I brought you here. Leonie hardly cared as her plate was removed from her. The one bite of veal she had eaten made it clear her chef was unable to create a true meal with the inferior quality of what he had been given. The Duchess apparently had different feelings. Despite her usual disposition toward diplomacy, Leonie noticed Amandine continued eating, waving the maid away when she came to retrieve her meal the way that she had already taken Leonie's. The woman's discomfort made Leonie smile inwardly, though outwardly she ensured all of her attention stayed on the woodsman, who was growing more and more a conundrum to her. She had meant her words about honor and foolishness. In fact, she was tempted into a larger conversation about Ilian economics as compared to the crown's policy on free trade, but she restrained herself. She doubted Ollie's thoughts were so sophisticated, and it was not the time. Ollie was watching the food leave, longing playing itself out in the creases of his eyes, though his face stayed otherwise stoic. Leonie made a small commitment to herself that she would break him, make him flinch, make him show his weaknesses. So why did you bring me here? Ollie asked, shifting in his seat. Because I need to go into the wood, and I need a guide. Ollie froze. It was subtle. He had not been moving much before, but Leonie caught the signs, eyes stopping their movement, chest halted and rising and falling, fingers gripped around his chair, and then, in the matter of 2 or 3 heartbeats, he was nodding carefully along, seemingly unbothered. You were good at this game, it seems. It was a talent wasted on the commoner, though. She knew more than one noble who would still be alive if they had been able to control themselves so rigidly. Oi, Ollie said, and why are we going in? And why are you going in there? You already know, do you not? She thought. But aloud she said, because she glanced at Amandine, sighed, because I believe that within the depths of the Romia, what you call the wood, is the key to our kingdom's many problems. Ollie squinted at that. What problems? Have you heard of Cataraka? Ollie nodded, but said nothing. Good. Well, I shall not bore you with our kingdom's rich history, then. I can let Lady Amandine do that another time. Instead, let me say simply that the land without light is active once more, and the Yelmes have invaded from the west. The armies of the shattered land batter and pillage our towns, our cities, just as they did long ago. In fact, a band of 100 or more have come east, following me, I presume. The woodsman stared at her, his expression blank, disbelieving. He opened his mouth to speak and then closed it, opened it again, closed it again. We were as shocked as you, Leonie said, or perhaps more so. I was raised to believe the tales of the Dark Ones were more metaphor than truth. Tales of the Fae, they said. Leonie did not look toward Amandine, but she could almost hear the woman grinding her teeth. But it is true. What has become myth after an epoch is now reality once more, and we have been found unprepared. Ollie met Leonie's eyes. Why should I believe you? Amandine sucked in a breath, and before Leonie could say a word, the Duchess leaned forward and said, How dare you? Do you question the Princess of Trevelard? Ollie looked casually at the older woman. It's a bit of a tall tale is all. Monsters from legend on their way to our little stretch of the world don't seem likely. Leonie nodded and put a hand to silence Amandine's upcoming reproach. It was not the time for the older woman's outburst. Besides, Leonie loved how clearly Ollie rankled Amandine. She may keep the commoner around just for that. I appreciate your skepticism, but I speak the truth. Months ago, I was in the capital when we received frantic reports of the armies of Cataraka pouring forth from the west. By the time we mustered our troops and rode to meet them, they had already surrounded the great city of Worcester, Lady Amandine's home. Leonie gestured to Amandine, who looked away. We fought hard, but... Leonie lifted her forearm, letting Ollie's eyes take in the scar there. He had noticed it already, she was sure, but she never bothered to hide it. The Yelmes have power, a magic of sorts that imbues their weapons in their bodies. They slay 3 of our soldiers for every 1 of theirs. Her hand was shaking slightly, and she looked at it as if it did not belong to her, before placing it carefully on the table, pressing it down hard enough to still it. Worcester is in ashes now, and the rest of Trevelard will follow if something is not done. And so you've come here. Ollie's voice trailed off, his eyes flickering over Leonie's face, her scar. Leonie leaned forward, voice quiet, letting her intensity push each word out past her lips. I believe within the depths of the Romea is an ancient power, a power that once pushed back the forces of Cataraka in the last epoch. I want that power, Ollie. I want to save my kingdom. Ollie could have retched. He knew what she wanted. He had seen it before, and the thought made him sick. He sat still as he could, focusing on his breathing, palms sweating, the world around the princess blurred. You're fine, Ollie thought to himself. You're fine. He was looking at the floor now, taking in the grain of the hardwood. Where's Tuck? He wanted to see him, pet his fur, hear his breathing, know he was fine. Ollie was fine, everything was fine, but Tuck was back in Ninja's cabin, half dead from their escapade into the deep. Things were not fine. And now the princess wanted to go deeper, further. Oh, Ollie knew where. He knew exactly where she wanted to go. He could take her, but he wouldn't, he couldn't. He'd been there before, seen it before, watched his father die before. They all died, and he'd watched them, seen them, stood there, slack-jawed as... Ollie. He blinked. The princess came into focus again, her eyes narrow. She'd been calling him, hadn't she? Aye. Princess Leonie gently put her elbows on the table, letting her fingers fold together until her arms formed a triangle before her. You know where I need to go. You know what it is I want. If it had been a question, Ollie would have denied it. But it wasn't, and he didn't. Leonie nodded, Ollie's silence as good as his agreement. You will take me there. No. The princess leaned back as if slapped. Her cheeks and neck reddened, and her mouth worked silently, looking for words, but it was Lady Amandine who spoke. You are afraid, are you not? The words weren't angry, weren't an accusation. Ollie heard what? Concern? When he looked at her, he saw her eyes were soft, working hard to repress tears. This woman was a conundrum. One moment ready to flay Ollie alive with her words, the next moment ready to weep before him. Still, something about the softness of her eyes, her voice, made the dam in Ollie shudder. It didn't break, but it cracked a little. I'm scared. I know what she wants. He looked at the princess. What you want? I've been in the deepest part of the wood, where the trees have all died. The beasts aren't natural. More than 10 winters ago. My father, he took us there, me and others, a dozen, stray as are, all of us. Oh, we knew the wood, but we hadn't been that far, that deep. He talked about power, about magic. He knew things. What things? Amandine said, drawing his eyes back to her. He leaned forward. She leaned forward, brow furrowed. He was learned, you know. Knew his letters, had books. He wasn't from here, wasn't born to the wood like me. He came looking for something, for someone. Ollie turned and saw Leonie leaning forward, her lips mouthing a word Ollie knew by heart, a word he hadn't spoken aloud in a long, long time. Stardavna. Leonie's eyes widened, eager and hungry. Did you find her? Whatever spell had come over him that had loosened his lips when the Duchess had called out his fear was broken at the sight of her longing. He saw his father behind her, the same drive which had killed him. Ollie said nothing, only met those eyes with a blank stare, working quickly to rebuild whatever wall Lady Amandine had begun to tear down in him. But he didn't need to say anything, for Amandine said it for him. He died, did he not? Your father, I mean. Ollie kept silent, eyes still on the princess. Her hunger made her seem like a ghost. The pale skin that had drawn Ollie's eyes like a moth to flame was, well, now it repulsed him. And those he brought with you? Amandine was still speaking. Ollie looked at the older woman, but this time he didn't let her soft look break him. He met her kindness with a cold stare, hoping it would ward her off. Amandine nodded as if silence told her everything she needed to know, and it did, Ollie supposed. You alone escaped. You said it had been, 10 years? She looked to Leonie, taking a deep breath and setting her shoulders before speaking. He was only a boy when he saw his father killed, searching for the same twisted power you... Oh, if you have mercy, Your Highness, you will leave him out of this. Ollie turned back to the princess, keeping his eyes on hers. Will you have mercy? Ollie wondered. Will you leave me out of this? He knows. The thought consumed her. This was more than she had hoped for. Before her sat a man who knew the way to Stardavna, who could lead her there. And Lady Amandine thought that she could leave this woodsman out of this? You will take me there, woodsman, Leonie said once more. No. They held one another's gaze, and Leonie watched as her guards near the door prepared themselves. Oh, they would beat him if she asked. But what would that gain her? He'd be useless to them. She could take his family hostage. Did he have family? He said he had people he cared for. So she could threaten them, but Ollie's eyes were cold and hard. Oh, he was a killer, whether he knew it or not. She'd been around many of them, men and women who could take life. She was one of them, was she not? And she wanted this man to lead her into a dangerous and unfamiliar place. If she threatened his family, he may slit her throat at the first opportunity. Threatening him was, she decided, a poor tactic. For now. At least he would try to kill her in the Vromia. At worst, he would succeed. Leonie nodded. I see you are a determined man, and that has my appreciation. Lady Amandine is wise as well, and I would like nothing more than do what she has asked and leave you out of this. But there are far too many lives at stake. The power you have seen, the power which did not harm, the power which you have seen, the power that did such harm to you, we must turn it against the Yelmes, or everyone we love, everyone you care for, will burn beneath the wrath of monsters. I have seen what they can do, Ollie. but you can help me save countless people, including the ones whom you love. Oli's eyes shifted. Good, let that sink in. Leone waited for a heartbeat, then continued, but those who serve the crown shall be rewarded. And this task I am asking you to perform is one of great personal trial. It is worthy, I think, of a great reward. One of Oli's eyebrows twitched upward. There it is, she thought. On behalf of the crown, I charge you to bring me to the Star Adopna, and in exchange, I will give you 500 gold numens. There, Leone thought, watching Oli's eyes go wide. He could buy the whole of this village with that. Amandine sucked in her breath predictably, reinforcing the grandeur of his offer. Oli started, but then stopped. Had she gone too high? Could he even imagine so much? The woodsman coughed, looked away. Leone pressed in. All you need to do is bring me there. You need not confront her, need not relive your past. Just bring me to her. Do that, and you shall have enough money to live as you would like until you are old. You could move away from here. Take your loved ones to live in the lap of luxury in Sherrowtone or South Fern. You could travel, see the Badawai Republic, visit Turris Regis, and see your kingdom's capital. She had him, and she knew it. He fidgeted, licking his lips and looking away. The story of this man's life played itself in his disconcerted looks. He merely needed to do this one thing, and then all of his problems would vanish. Oi, Ollie said after a moment. He cleared his throat, looking away, and he took a deep breath. Aye, I'll take you, but only the edge of the clearing. I ain't going no further. The clearing? Aye, deep in the wood, near the heart of it all. It's a circle of dead land. Nothing grows, nothing lives. It's where she is, right the center of all that. We call it the clearing. Leone nodded. We are in accord. You will lead me to this clearing tomorrow. Once done, the crown will reward you. No, Ollie said. Now. What? Leone blinked. I want the gold now. Or some of it, at least. Leone said nothing, only cast her withering gaze on the woodsman and let it do its work. Except the man did not even flinch. He held her gaze, cool and steady. She had been in negotiations before, of course, but not with a commoner. The idea grated her, insulted her. Bargaining with the crown was, of course, Amandine said, it will be a dangerous mission. You have loved ones to consider. An offering of good faith would be polite and would ensure that even if you do not return, those you leave behind will be taken care of. Witch, Leone thought, wanting to scream. She had never intended to pay the man. It was a problem she had intended to postpone until later, praying that by some ill fortune she would never have the need. How much gold did Leone even have with her? Certainly not 500 gold numens. Leone cleared her throat. Of course, the lady speaks on behalf of the crown. 1 gold numen will be provided to you this evening, and you can entrust it with whomever you would like. I can spare no more until the power is within my grasp, and I shall send a guard with you this evening to ensure your safety until morning, and to make sure you do not run off with my gold. Before Ollie could object, Leone snapped her fingers, bringing the maid to her side. In a moment, she had given the girl instructions, and the girl left. Leone stood. Now I think it is best we all get rest. In the morning, an hour before dawn, you will meet me and my people in the courtyard outside. Ollie stood, then without a bow, or even another word, he left. His eyes had been glazed over, distant. Silence stretched itself out over the dining room. In the woodsman's absence, the echo of the closing door fading, Leonie clenched her hands into a fist and turned to the Duchess. You just cost the crown a gold Newman, Lady Imondine. A dozen soldiers could have been armed, trained, and paid for a year with that kind of money. Lady Imondine cocked an eyebrow. I am sorry, Your Highness. It appeared you had just offered 500 of those same Newmans on behalf of the crown. Unless, of course, you are lying to one of your subjects while representing your father. Leonie's fingernails bit into her palms, teeth grinding the back of her teeth grinding in the back of her mouth. Amandine stood, gently flattening the ruffles in her dress. I have been your confidant since you were a child, Your Highness. I am here with you now, not because of any love for your task, but because of my love for you. You are my princess, and by the Maker's grace, I pray you will one day be my queen. Amandine breathed in deep, the braids of her dark hair gently rustling and shifting as she on her shoulders. But until such a time, I will hold you to account for your words and deeds. That way, if you ever sit on the throne, then perhaps you will be worthy of it. There was silence once again, and then the gentle clap-top of Amandine's shoes as she walked around the table, past the guards, and out of the room. Before the door closed for a second time, Leonie waved away her guards, dismissing them so she could be well and truly alone. For an hour or more, Leonie sat in the garish dining room alone. If someone had looked in, they would have seen the princess leaning against the arm of her chair, her chin resting on her closed fist, eyes distant. For Leonie had gone into the confines of her mind, in a place like an art gallery. A place painstakingly constructed in her imagination by a young girl whose circumstances meant she never knew solitude. On the walls of this internal place, she walked by tapestries, paintings, and sculptures. Her body sat fixed beside the fire in the dining room of the Tote estate, while in the depths of her mind she walked by pieces of art on display for her and her alone. Each detail emerged from memories, moments in time she had frozen and saved for this silence, for this time of aloneness. She made her way through childhood memories of rope swings, carefully tuned harps, to adolescent memories of court intrigue and potential suitors. She walked briskly by the most recent ones, a statue of a screaming Yelmes soldier, the edges of her mouth slightly in a light and literal fire, lightning crackling from her hand, a painting of her father standing before his throne, frozen in anger as he yelled, ordering Leonie to stay in the city. She had left that night under the cover of darkness. Eventually, she turned into a compact room with speckled gray stone walls and rows of framed canvases leaning upon one another. Here her memories lay dormant, awaiting the time in which she would study each one, choosing those to be burned and cataloging the rest. Carefully, she pulled free one of the canvas memories near the front of the row. A portrait of the magistrate stared up at her, encased in a nicked and splintery oak frame. It portrayed him sitting in the study, cheeks flushed red, eyes bulging. He cared for Watchful, Leonie realized. Oh, he cared for himself more, surely, but still, there was something in the way that he dressed, in the pathetic comb of his hair. He didn't adopt the fashions of the Trevelarian elite. At first, Leonie had thought of that as a simple commoner, too far from civilization to know what was courtly fashion. But more was going on. Magistrate Tote had wealth, and he had traveled, evidenced by the small figurines and trinkets on the study shelves. He chose to ignore the fashions of nobility. Every magistrate, mayor, or lord of every city, town, or village Leone had visited in Trevlar had always tried to imitate the fashions of those above them in station, with varying levels of success. But not this man. He dressed like one from here, if nicer. He spoke like a commoner and dressed something like one. He cared for this place. Leone walked on, looking at paintings of Thibault, of Tull, of Amandine. She paused, remembering the sunset from that morning, the painting on the wall of her mind nearly as breathtaking as the real thing. After returning home, she would paint the picture and move this portrait from the wall of her mind to the wall of her bedchamber. Leone moved on until she stood before a painting of Oli. The painting had emerged from the first instant she had seen him. He, kneeling beside Tull, who was out of focus. He was a handsome man, his eyes and cheeks too sunken. Oh, he was not a handsome man. His eyes and cheeks too sunken, his body too scarred. Still, even in that first moment, Leone could see the strength of him, his determination, born of a combination of stupidity and courage. Stupidity and courage. She could use that, wield that. Leone smiled.